This time on shift points, we get rid of this table and replace it with this table. Thank you guys for joining. Alright guys, you guys know normally what we're doing here is working in the shop, working on cars, doing upgrades and things like that. Well, today we're actually going to make a shop upgrade. We have this bench that we've had here in the shop for a very, very long time. As long as I can remember, and probably before then.
Since 85.
Since 85, Dad says. So it's been here for a very long time, and we've done a lot of work on this bench, but we have something to replace it. We went down and picked up a welding table and basically really up our fabrication game here. I mean, you might be wondering why I would make a video about unloading a table. Well, it's because it's not exactly a table right now. We bought this kit from a company, I have to look up their name to make sure I get it right, down in Lincoln, North Carolina. They have these flat pack kits. This is a 4x8 table, and it's going to be a box table. It's going to have bracing, and you can see it's got 5/8 holes drilled all throughout it, and it's going to really make working on doing some fabrication and jobs that we do a lot of the time a lot easier, and this is going to become our main workbench. So, like I said, the reason we're making a video is we've got to get that guy assembled, but first, before we can even start on that, we've got to completely rearrange the shop so we can get it in here. So let's go ahead and get that done. Well, that is job number one done. Got this thing cleared out here. Got to clean this floor up. We got to bring in some blocks. We're going to set that tabletop on some blocks to get it really good and flat before we start doing the actual assembly process. So we got to clean this floor real good, get it laid out, get the blocks brought in, so then we can get everything unloaded out of the truck. Alright, that was a pretty big job. We got this guy in here. What we did off camera, because I didn't realize wasn't rolling, we added one more block in the center. So we've got 5 blocks under this. The reason why for that, I didn't really explain that. We want to try and get this piece as flat as we possibly can for when we start building it. We want to make sure everything gets built up really square, because we want this thing to be as flat and level as we possibly can make it. So that's what we've got here, supported there in 5 spots here. We've got it really level across the board. Now the next thing will be getting those pieces, which I didn't show you, but I'll show you now. We'll start getting these guys all laid in place, and you can see this table has fingers that go down into the pre-cut square rectangular holes there in the table. So these go down, and then they actually interlock with each other. These are the ones that run the width of the table, and these guys run the length of the table, and they all kind of interlock at a point. So that's going to be a really strong structured piece. So the next thing we'll start doing is actually getting these taken off the table and get them put over there. Alright, so we started fitting our width-wise ones. That's important, we found out, because if you look at how these notches are here, the length pieces and the width pieces actually interlock with each other. Well, these have to go on first because of the way they're made, and if you look at the length pieces, they're made this way. So you have to put the width ones on first, then you can do the length ones, and you can see there's going to be 3, 6, 7 of these lengthwise plus the end pieces. And you can see this guy, there is a little bow to the pieces, but I mean, it's kind of expected. Take a hammer here and get that seated. All seated in there, and it's literally that easy to put that piece in there right there. So we got to pay attention, make sure These pieces in the center are solid, where the guys on the edges have holes in them, perforated just like that guy. So we're gonna make sure we put the hole sides on the outside and the solid ones in the middle. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of them put in. All right, so we got everything basically pre-fitted except for the very long sides here that have the perforations in them, the 5/8 holes in them. So we've got everything else in here. But what we've run into and what we see, even with that center block in there, there's a little bit of a sag in the center. So these, especially the the length pieces here, they don't mate into the top of the table like we want them to in the center. But the guys that built this table, they knew this was a possibility basically, and they sent these tie bars with them. So these plates right here come with the kit. We went up to Asheville Bolt and Screw and got, these are 5/8 bolts, got washers and nuts on them. These are about 8 inches long. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go here on these 4 corners, tighten these up, and then that will pick the center of this plate table up and get these to seat down in here better than they are right now. Again, this is laying exaggerated like this right now. When we tighten up all 4 sections of these, we believe that that's going to pull this table up in here. But we will start here, clamp, and then we'll start moving out in both directions. We've got 15 of those bars right there, so we'll go out in both directions and sort of pull the table up, all the way out. Once this is bolted up and tied in real good, we can put our sidebars on, and then Dad can go ahead and start welding this up. Now we won't solid weld this by any means. We don't want to put just a ton of heat in this, but you'll do some stitch welds here in various places in these squares on the bottom of this to keep everything held together. Okay, so you can see here the table is completely disassembled. What we thought was sag from the tabletop itself was actually 2 of our width size pieces. And what was happening is even when we started to clamp it up with our tie bars, it would never close that gap. So after quite a bit of time of just kind of trying to figure out what the heck it could be, we started doing some measuring and we pulled this thing back apart. What we found out was on 2 of these pieces, these slots right here were 200 thousandths too shallow. So of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 of these, 2 of them, these slots were too shallow. So whenever we would try and clamp it, they would hit into an interference fit and it would stop the tabletop from coming up and closing the gap up like we wanted it to. So, like we always say, this one didn't come in a box, but normally what we would say is if it comes in a box, you got to fix it. What we did, or what we're gonna do here, is take this rough and cut end mill. Dad has these in the mill now. He's gonna take and he's gonna open this slot up 200 thousandths down this way. You can actually see on this one, he's already done it in a couple of these. We'll go ahead and do this one, and then we'll be ready to actually put this thing all back together, completely back together, and then clamp everything up with our tie bars. Also, I did reach out to Taika. So the name of this company is Taika Industries. They're in Lincoln, North Carolina. I reached out to him. He said that they did know that they had a batch of these that had this issue, and that they thought that they had all been taken care of, but apparently we ended up with 2 of them still in there. So instead of sending us 2 new pieces, what they did is they told us to take a 3/8 drill bit and drill a hole at the bottom of this to resolve the issue. That's not super great, to be honest with you. We weren't super impressed by that answer, but we have a much better way of doing it, because it's just what we do. We have a much better way of doing it with the mill here, so we'll go ahead and get that taken care of. Like I said, this wasn't cheap, you know, nowhere near as much as what we've seen online on a lot of these, but this wasn't cheap, and I don't really love that answer. So just my little 2 cents there so far, and I think that after we get this done, this is going to be a very well-made table. So kind of take that what you will, but if you get one of these, you may have to make some modifications. Alright, so we got everything put back together, started putting our tie bars in, and so you can see what it is exactly that I'm talking about here. You can see that gap between the bottom of the tabletop and this middle support, and you can see these fingers that go into the top of the table. If we start tightening up this tie bar, you can see that that gap closes up. It gets these pieces completely aligned, and there we go. So you can see it's completely flat against it. And what we'll do, we did the center one this way, did this one, we'll do that one as well, and we'll take what we've got left, all the tie bars we have left. I think they give us 15 of them. We'll spread these out across the entire section of these and get this whole thing pulled up flat so that there's no gaps like that anywhere else throughout this whole table.
Where's the most difficult to see?
It moved a lot.
The left, that's TJ Majors. That's a spotter for Joey Logano.
So what we're doing, we're not just hammering on this for the fun of it. This had a, you can actually still see just a little bit of it. This was sloped off. This has been hit here at some point when it was loaded or whatever. So anyway, so Dad took this jack, put under it with a block under it, and then he was hitting it with that hammer to try and get this where it slopes off like this, trying to get that back flat. And you can see after those two big licks, that end is now level, square, and on this side as well. Dead on level. So yeah, perfect. Now that corner's good, we can go ahead and do our perimeter pieces now. All right, we have it all together now. So everything is clamped. We took some bar clamps. The long pieces had just a little bit of bow to them, which I mean, like I said, we've kind of seen that with all these really long pieces. So we took bar clamps and went across the length this, or the width this direction, got everything clamped up. Got all of our bolts in here. These are 5/8 bolts. One other thing I hadn't showed you guys is how the legs will attach. So these plates will actually go into these notches like this. They'll lay there, and then they also come with a leg piece. So this guy, we have to get some 3x3 square tubing, but they will fit down into that. We can weld around it. That'll have the leg into this plate, and then these plates are together, so you can just bolt these guys up, bolt the legs up to the table itself, which is probably a good thing because it's going to be a pretty big project to get this thing flipped over and put into place. That we have not figured out just yet. So we got everything clamped up, ready to go. Now Dad has already started welding. So we laid out a bit of a pattern on the bottom of this. We're not, of course, we're not going to solid weld everything on the bottom. We're going to do some stitch welds and somewhat of a pattern so that we can get this tabletop tied in and make sure it doesn't get a bunch of heat in it and get warped. So we started in the center, got everything in, pulled a couple clamps off, and we're starting to kind of work our way out here. So let me show you the pattern that we came up with. So what we're going to do here, you can see we've got a stitch weld that goes into this corner. Comes the length of this, it goes into the corner, and then we're going to do that. Alternating sides, go here, and then to there, and then to there. And then once we move over to the next section, instead of having them run this way, we're going to run them this way. So we'll run one here and here, and we'll do that for this crossbar. Alternate lengthwise on the table, and then again we'll come back, finish the pattern out, and come over here and go back to widthwise. So that's the plan. Do all that, get this thing welded up. Like I said, we pulled this center clamp out. I'm moving it out here to the outside. So what I did here was run the clamp through this hole and then run the washer here. It's clamped with the washer so it would pull this up. There was a bit of a gap between the top and this guy here. So using our same clamps, we just moved it out here, pulled this up tight, and we'll start welding here. We'll have to move these clamps kind of out, or maybe even use a pair of them. Pull that one off here in a minute. Put a pair here, so that'll weld here and here, and then work our way down there. So now Dad's got his evening cut out for him doing some welds. After what turned into a couple different times and days of kind of a marathon weld session, we have the whole table welded up. We went ahead and put a stitch weld at least at every one of these X's and one of the four corners of all these X's, all the different spots there on the tabletop. You can see we tried to stick to a pattern for the most part, but there's probably a little bit of variance. Now we are putting the leg plates in. Another little quirkiness about the table, this is definitely off center. This is at 1/2 inch and that's 1 inch. These two are like that. This is a 3/4 inch, 3/4 inch, where these two over here are centered up like they're supposed to be. So just another little thing, but shouldn't be a big deal. Just gonna offset this a 1/2 inch this direction, but it'll be okay. But what we did on these plates is I actually, let's go check this one out right here. I took and beveled a corner and all four corners here to clear the welds where we had put them there in the uprights. And I also took a grinder and chamfered these edges so that whenever Dad does weld these up, he'll get a really good penetration there and get everything filled in good, so these hold up really well. You gotta think about this really heavy table is held up in these four spots with these four plates, so it's important to get them welded in good. And while we're tacking them in, what I'm doing is just taking a level, making sure that they're level in all or in both directions, which that's definitely close enough. And then getting Dad to tack them in, and then once he gets all four tacked in, we'll go back and weld them all up. Alright, so one piece that didn't come with this kit is the legs, which we knew that from the beginning. This plates that they send with it come ready for 3x3 material. So we had about 13 feet of this 4x4 stainless tubing here, square tubing. We'll get to use this material that we've had sitting back here behind the shop for a very long time. And it's going to be really good. I mean, the 3x3, even the ones that they had down there at the shop that we picked this up from, they looked a little spindly, you know, because this is a really big table. So we're going to go to this 4x4. It's stainless. It's got a thick wall. It's going to be really heavy duty, and it's, I think, really perfect for what this is going to be. So, and plus getting a section of 2x2 or a section of 3x3 tubing was going to be like $240, something like that. So we already had this, so we might as well use it. So we'll go ahead and let this bandsaw go ahead and keep cutting to get these done. We got one done. We got 3 more to go. It has been a long day of welding and grinding and cutting today. But we're at the point now where we can finally weld our legs up to the plates. But Dad decided that we'll just butt weld those directly to them. I chamfered the legs really well. Chamfered the legs really well here. And we're going to just set these up here, get them squared up on these plates, weld them directly to these plates. So that will raise your table up 3/8 of an inch. Not the end of the world by any means. So he's going to TIG these together with our Miller welder over there. And I'm going to get him to talk you through the stuff that he's going to use to do that.
We're putting these legs in this. These legs are stainless steel tubing we've had for a pretty good while. And the plates that we're welding it to is just mild steel, 3/8 mild steel. This is a 309 alloy stainless filler rod that is designed to put dissimilar metals together. And it does a good job. I've welded quite a bit of mild steel to stainless, and it does a really good job. This is 1/8 rod. This is the wall thickness on the tubing is 1/4 inch, and then the bottom plates are 3/8. So it's pretty thick. We want a pretty good. And Jake put a pretty good chamfer on this, so we're going to try to fill it up with this rod. This filler rod does a real good job welding mild steel to stainless.
All right, this thing is starting to really look like a table. Got all 4 legs set in place here. You can see all we've got left to do is bolt them down. We're letting them cool because that stainless cools very, very slow, and it is still very, very, very hot. So tomorrow we'll get in here, bolt these down, and then Dad had the great idea to go get our rotisserie, and that's what we're gonna do to get this thing flipped over. See you guys tomorrow. Got the legs bolted up this morning. These things are like crazy solid. They bolted up really well. The plates pulled up really flat, no gap or anything there at all, which is great on all 4 corners. So, like I told you guys there just a second ago, we're gonna use our car rotisserie that we have to get this thing flipped over because it's really, really heavy. It's really, really awkward. But with this, what we'll be able to do with these posts stuck out like this, we'll jack the table up just a little so that we can slide these under here. We'll be able to run a bolt through that post there and through the table in 4 spots. And then we can just take and turn that big screw there, get this thing raised up as high as we can to get it near the center of rotation on that right there. And at that point, should be able to, with me and Dad on each end, should just be able to easily turn this thing over. We get the legs pointed down and then just let it ease down with that same screw, relieve the pressure, and we'll be set. So Dad has already jacked that side up with a jack to get it to where the rotisserie will go under it. We want to push this guy in as far as we can, spread the arms as far as we can, push these arms in as far as we can, and then bolt it up. And that is going to get us really secure, and we think it's the easiest, safest way to get this thing flipped over. Gonna go low enough.
Do what?
We're not gonna go low enough.
Nobody will?
Nope.
Oh, you're right. Doors down,
Yeah.
all the way?
Yeah. Alright, we've pretty much hit our max sketchiness here. We've got the engine hoist over here, holding up that end of the table. That rotisserie part is out. We've got 2 jacks under this side. We're going to get the rotisserie out, then set that side down, bring the engine hoist over here, and let this side down, or pick it up off the jacks, get the jacks out, and then let it down. Let one roll out. Out. All right, get it down. All right. All right. Huge, yeah. Well, that only took 2 hours.
Just to let it down.
Just
Turn it
to
over,
flip
let
it and turn it down.
Yeah.
All right, we finally got it. This thing looks so good. There's a little, this is where those rubber mats we had on the blocks kind of stuck a little, but that's no big deal. We can scrape that off. But this turned out really great. If we get here, probably can't tell too much about it, but you can see kind of just how flat this is, the surface is. And then we'll go down on this side and it's the same way. Looking down the length, it is very flat, and that's great. This is not where it's gonna live. It's gonna need to go that way and come out some so we can still get access to the lathe. But you can see this is like the perfect height. It's right here, right about just under my waist height. Really good working surface level. You can get to the middle of the table easily. This is gonna be really nice. But yeah, and that was the other thing Dad was saying. You can see some of the heat that got down into this, which makes him real confident about the penetration that he got on those welds with this 3/8 material, getting some blue to it. Well, needless to say, this thing turned out even better than we expected it to be honest with you. And we go ahead and let's check this out with a level. You can see where we've got it set up here in this direction. It is completely level. If we turn our square around here, we can see just how level it is this direction. But the other thing to kind of take note on in this direction is if we get down here to low, you can see there is absolutely no gap between the level and the table. That's how flat we were able to get this, which is really good, and it's exactly what we were hoping to have done out of this. So it's awesome. We've already got our anvil put back in place. Dad has a big vise that he's looking at putting on here. So we've already started thinking about all of that stuff also. So I think that that's gonna basically wrap us up this week. This is gonna make a big difference in what we do on a lot of different stuff. So gives us a really good work surface, really good level square work surface to work off of. It's gonna make everything a lot better around here. It's taking up a little more room, but once we get the 55 off the I-beams here, we'll move it over some and give ourselves a little bit more clearance there. So it's really good. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to follow us on social media, hit that subscribe button if you like this. And if you want to see us use this table in the future, you do that. You're not gonna miss it a single time that we do it. So appreciate you guys. See you next week.